Hey, welcome back to the channel, my fellow weather junkies. I'm your host, meteorologist Greg Majeski, your trusted weather source here, bringing you the weather without all that social media hype here on your June 27th, 2025. Well, we got to get you ready for the weekend. What do you think? Are you ready for the weekend? I know I am, that's for sure. All right, got several things we're going to talk about. We got some areas of severe weather we're going to track through the weekend. We'll let you know what areas are under the hot zone there for any potential severe weather. Obviously, with summertime temperatures, it's not that hard to pop them, that's for sure. We're also going to talk about the tropics. Yeah, we got a couple of tropical trouble hotspots to watch that could have an indirect influence on what we could see as far as precipitation into the southwestern portion of the United States. We'll give you an update on that. And then we'll also talk about still dealing with some residual impacts of that heat wave that was really kind of baking parts of the country. We still have some heat advisories out there for today. We'll give you the latest on that as well. Now, before we get going into this report, first I want to say thank you and welcome aboard to any new subscribers here on the channel. And if you could please help our struggling little channel, we could sure use your help. Please hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell so you're alerted on future content. And if you ever have a comment and you got a question, please post it down below. Give me a thumbs up. It does help with the almighty YouTube algorithm. All right, so let's go ahead and get into your latest report. Let's go and get things underway by taking a look at the latest of what's going on out in the tropics. We're going to first focus in here on the Atlantic side. The National Hurricane Center lit this one up yesterday evening, showing a 20% chance for development here. We were highlighting that area of thunderstorms yesterday, but looks like we may get something that may briefly try to form as it tries to get into the Bay of Campeche down there in the southwest portions of the Gulf. So we'll have to see if everything comes true or not. It doesn't really matter because this moisture is going to feed up into Mexico and make a beeline for potentially into the southwest. So that's problem number one there. So here's the satellite imagery right now. Is this, again, seeing that cluster of thunderstorms right out here in the Western Caribbean. Of course, as it crosses land, it's not going to be able to develop, but it'll have a small window here in the Bay of Campeche. You got water in there. It's like bath water, pretty warm down there in the southwest portion of the Gulf. So we'll see if everything develops or not. But again, it's the moisture content that's going to be moving in through Mexico, and it will be pulled into the southwestern portion of the United States. Again, that's problem number one. Problem number two is on the other side, going over to the Pacific side. We got a 90% chance of seeing something developing off here. We're likely going to get a named storm here. This one will be called Flossie, where this one develops. So as you take a look at the satellite imagery here on this one, you can kind of see the scattered storms out here off the coast, and this is expected to continue to track up this way, and then maybe eventually have its moisture also get pulled into the southwestern portion of the United States. So what I want to go ahead and take a look at is the latest European model here, the 0Z run from overnight. And we're going to kind of highlight this a little bit. As you can see, this moisture coming out of the into the southwestern portion of the Gulf. So this is not showing much development in that area. Okay, we're not seeing much out in here. You're seeing just some scattered storms, and this is just going to pull on up here. And then we're going to watch for Flossie down here on the southern portion of this. So watch as I go forward in time. Watch that timestamp here as that moisture is going to move up toward the north. In through Mexico, and then you see there's Flossie right behind it. So the combination of both these moisture flows are going to go right into the southwest. So again, what that's going to mean is we head toward the 3rd and the 4th, heading in toward the 4th of July weekend. Flooding could be a problem for areas across the southwest. So Arizona, New Mexico, and even parts of Texas need to pay close attention to both these tropical entities. Even though neither one are going to be big storms, the tropical moisture could be a real big problem, and flooding could be an issue as we go toward the 4th of July weekend. We had a fairly active severe weather day yesterday on your Thursday, as we had some 267 reports. Most of those were wind reports, some 252 of those, but we still had a few tornadoes as well. We had 4 there two across southern Minnesota and 2 into Iowa. So it was a pretty busy active weather day, and I think we're going to see a few more in that area again for today. What I find interesting is that we're running almost identical to last year, a little bit above. We're at 1,258, really technically add 4 more to that, so 1,262 so far. So we're running just a little bit above where we were in 2024. So interesting how those lines are running fairly parallel to each other so far this year. Now, as far as severe weather for today, and we're going to take you right through the weekend here, again, we're going to be looking at the high plains once again here across areas of the Dakotas and in toward Nebraska. That's going to be a hot zone there. Obviously right across the Great Lakes as well, and generally looking at a marginal risk here across the southeast, but we did see it upgrade to slight late yesterday. You couldn't rule that out, especially with the summertime heat and those thunderstorms, depending on how they develop throughout the day. Let's go ahead and break down the categories for today as far as the tornado wind and hail threat. Obviously, the tornado threat will be running the highest up here into the Dakotas and high plains, very common this time of year. So we're talking about Bismarck down to Pierre, Miller, Aberdeen, pretty close to Aberdeen. So this area looking at about a 5% chance of seeing a few isolated tornadoes for today. Obviously, the bigger threat's going to be the wind threat. We got a couple of zones to watch there. Obviously, the high plains and back over toward Michigan. And of course, the brown area is your 5% risk. So either one of these isolated thunderstorms could see wind gusts to 50, 60 miles per hour in these zones, and probably 60, 65 up here into the high plains area. Now, as far as the hail threat for today, that'll be predominantly confined here across areas of the Dakotas and down toward Nebraska. That's where the highest hail threat will be running here for your Friday. Now, what about for your Saturday? Let's check out the Saturday here. Kind of shift a little bit here off to the east. You've seen here across Minnesota, back over towards South Dakota and Nebraska. A marginal risk here across portions of the East Coast from New York State down toward Virginia. A very large general threat here across the Southeast. Again, won't shock me in the least if that changes a little bit heading forward tomorrow. And then going into day 3, that little system will move a little bit further east. You're seeing that slight risk here across the UP of Michigan, down toward Wisconsin, a little bit of Minnesota, and the marginal risk kind of stretching back from the Great Lakes back over toward Colorado as we go into your Sunday. Now, with that going on, we'll talk about the flood risk. Obviously, when you got summertime thunderstorms that don't move all that much, you got to worry about the flooding here. We're going to also take a look at the next 3 days here as far as the flooding is concerned here. And the good news is all of it looks like it's going to stay predominantly marginal. So those green zones where the thunderstorms, if you get one on top of you, it may dump a couple of inches. Flood-prone areas may be a problem. So this is for your Friday. The only thing we're kind of seeing here with the yellow is across portions of maybe Pennsylvania and into Maryland and Virginia there. Looks like a little bit of the Appalachians there just a little bit. And going into your day 2, the northeast areas there across the high plains, again, we're kind of watching up here and across the as that frontal system moves into the northeast, a little further there across the southwest going into your Saturday. And then finally going into your Sunday, we'll kind of shift up predominantly out here into the middle of the country and maybe get a little bit of the southeast in here as well, getting it with some of the higher rain threats in there. And then I'm telling you, the main thing I'm worried about with the excessive rain forecast when we go into the following weekend, if that tropical moisture comes up, as we just gave you an update on, I think we could see a lot more yellow, maybe even reds getting in the areas of the southwest as we go toward the 3rd and the 4th. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on. All right, so let's go ahead and take a deeper analysis of what you can expect this weekend as we look at our current surface map, and then we'll take you right into the forecast models here. As you know, we're kind of continuing that trend. You know, this is summertime. Obviously, the storm track stays across the northern portion of the United States. One thing I've noticed so far this year is the Bermuda High has stayed relatively weak, which means we're continuing a decent track of moisture continuing to come out of the Gulf across the eastern half of the United States. And it looks like that trend's going to also hold here going into the weekend and going in toward next week. And then obviously we got to watch that tropical moisture influence across the southwest. That could be a factor we got to watch to make sure flooding doesn't become a problem. So let's go ahead and take a look at your short-term forecast. We're looking at your intermediate model here, the NAM 3 kilometer. Going to take you right through the weekend here. And we're going to be watching one storm system that'll be kind of moving across the Great Lakes, moving in across into the northeast. So that's kind of clearing in there right now. You kind of see that kind of zooming on through on Saturday. And then we got a couple little clusters of storms that kind of work their way down out of the high plains and in across Missouri and into the southeast going in towards Sunday. So the southeast remain a little bit unsettled. The west looks pretty good. Got a little bit of this monsoon moisture coming in here across portions of Texas and into New Mexico. It does appear that the monsoon flow or whatever moisture comes up is going to favor a little more over toward New Mexico and Texas as Arizona. Arizona will get a little bit, but I don't think it'll get quite as much as areas there just to the east. So something to watch closely. But again, we'll get these little clusters of storms that'll flare up here all weekend long. And wherever their outflow boundaries are those set up, we'll set up some scattered storms here across the southeast. So the southeast, get ready for your rain chances to kind of come up a little bit. New England, you're going to have a wet day on Saturday, but looks like going into Sunday, we'll see a little bit improvement there. And then, of course, we'll watch these storms clusters that'll develop through the weekend here across the high plains and into the Great Lakes. Obviously, we saw the day 1, day 2 outlook here as that storm's systems kind of move ever so slowly off toward these. So we'll watch those clusters as they develop. All right, so let's look at the rainfall clusters here. This is going out for the 60 hours, going out till Sunday afternoon. And a couple of hot spots, obviously, here across Minnesota, in here into South Dakota, and also into Missouri. So Missouri, Kansas, seeing some areas. Looks like Tennessee and Kansas City getting some pretty heavy rains, along the Gulf Coast some pretty decent rains. And then anywhere you get these little pop-up storms, you'll get maybe a quick 1 or 2 inches there, possibly with those thunderstorms. Now, as far as temperatures are concerned, all right, so this is your afternoon highs here, a lot of 90s. You see the purples, a lot of 90s on this map, and it's going to get even hotter, folks, on Saturday across the middle of the country. You'll see what I'm talking about here in a second, but definitely pretty hot. Southwest, you're looking 105. That's where it's supposed to be. A lot of 90s here across Texas, heading up into Kansas as well. The Southeast, Carolina seeing 90s, but the Northeast not bad. We're seeing 70s up here across Minnesota and Wisconsin, and comfortable up across the Northwest. So let's go into your Friday morning here. We'll check and see how those morning lows are doing here on your Saturday morning. Comfortable across the Northwest, a lot of 50s and 40s out there. The Great Lakes got temperatures here in the 40s as well, up toward Maine. A lot of the country, though, 60s and 70s. I mean, pretty mild, especially here across the south central United States. See some upper 70s down here in Louisiana and Arkansas. That's what I like to lovingly refer to as air you can wear. And then you'll see what I'm talking about here for your Saturday afternoon highs here. We got temperatures here in Kansas shooting up to 102. So pretty hot there. Probably see some heat advisories out here. 95 in Nebraska, getting 90s back up into Minnesota as well. Got 90s along the Carolinas and Virginia coast down toward Florida, Texas, and of course we still got the heat down there in the southwest into the hundreds. The interior valleys of California also see a lot of hundreds going into Saturday as well. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the synoptic pattern here. We're looking at the big overall picture here. I've got this looping over the next 2 weeks. Again, when I look at the big pattern here, I'm looking at forecast trends, okay? And it looks like the northern branch stays active. We're going to get little periods here. You see the oranges, that's higher pressure here. You see kind of the building heat here in the middle of the country as we head toward the 4th of July weekend. But it breaks down pretty quickly. It shows a pretty vigorous storm system on the end of this. Of course, this is 360 hours out. So we'll see if that holds true in the future. But looks like the northern track stays fairly active. We get little periods of hot, brief periods of heat that builds with the high pressure building. You see it building right there. And then it kind of goes, it kind of chips away. So one thing I'm not seeing is a blocking pattern or anything that's going to be a long-term heat wave setting up, which is good news there. But we will say with a fairly progressive pattern across the northern tier, and either one of these systems can obviously set up severe weather that we'll have to watch here as well. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the short term. We're looking at the next 7 days. 7 days is kind of the window you want to really kind of be looking at. And we got a couple systems that are kind of across the northeast in the Great Lakes. So we got a couple of those coming down. And when these systems dive into the southeast, they'll stall and they'll kind of enhance the rain across the southeast going into the middle of next week. Looks like it starts to back off, looks to dry off a little bit as we head toward 4th of July weekend. So you folks in the southeast, it's going to be a little bit wetter into the weekend, into early next week. And it looks like it starts to back off a little bit. And you're still dealing with that fairly active flow across the northern tier. So that's where the severe weather hot zones will stay going into next week here as well. So that's what we'll watch. Again, that monsoon moisture you see here kind of working its way up here toward the end of this run, going into 3rd and the 4th. So we're talking about New Mexico, Texas, really kind of getting in here on the rain action here. In fact, as we go and look at the rainfall totals here, you see the big bullseye down here. These are some pretty decent rains, 2.5 inches, 2.5 inches. There's a 3-inch there, and these might be a little underdone. Typically, we talk about tropical moisture working its way up. The models tend to underestimate that a little bit. So it looks like some pretty decent rains even down toward Florida. They've been finding some drought conditions here, scattered storms here. Still fairly dry in California, into Nevada, into Oregon, Idaho. Really not limited rain chances there. But again, looking at the latest drought index, I want to point this out. You notice that this area down here, and this was just updated yesterday, still fighting these drought conditions down here. If this tropical moisture comes up as anticipated and the monsoon season stays active as it's expected to, we're really going to be tripping away at this drought conditions. It is come down a little bit from yesterday. And with the wet pattern across Florida, by the way, looks like that drought really might get wiped out here over the next couple of weeks. I think Florida might be completely gone by the time we get towards, say, the middle of July, if everything's progressing as expected. So let's go ahead and wrap this up and look at your climate outlook here as we go ahead and look at this. Again, this hasn't really changed much at all from yesterday. We're going to be dealing with below normal temperatures, above normal temperatures, and above normal precipitation. So the couple of the hot zones we're watching, again, this will take you from the 2nd through the 6th going into the 4th of July weekend, looking at above normal temperatures across the southeast, the Intermountain region looking above, except for the southwest. That's because of clouds and rainfall. So temperatures down here will be running below normal. And again, that's relative. We're talking instead of going up to maybe 110 degrees in the southwest. Maybe it's 100 to 105, so something like that, because of the increased cloud and rain threat. And this looks like this will continue into the 4th, into the 10th. So taking us out to the 10th of July, we're going to continue the same weather pattern here, where it's warmer here in the southwest and across the Intermountain, and we stay cool here across the southeast. We got a lot of near normal here for a big part of the country as well. So we got a little bit of everything here going into the month of July. What about precipitation-wise? Well, we've got a big bullseye there, obviously, across the southwest. That looks like that's going to hold true here going into the month of July. And a lot of the country looking at above normal precipitation, except for just a little bit of a sliver. We always got to have a little dry spot up here across the Pacific Northwest. But otherwise, a lot of the country at or above precipitation chances here from the 2nd to the 6th. And then going deeper, going into the 10th, still looking at that very, very wet Arizona and New Mexico. Only thing I'm a little privy on looking at the European model is maybe that should be a little bit a little bit further to the east. We'll see if that shifts in at all. It looks like a little dry spot here across the Texas Gulf Coast. But again, a lot of the nation either looking at precipitation above average or near average here as we go into the month of July. All right, that's going to wrap things up for this update. Again, you guys be careful out there. Obviously, we are in summertime. Folks are outside a lot more. So a couple things you got to watch out for is watch out for those thunderstorms. We had some 18 people get injured in South Carolina because of lightning. They were out on the lake when a thunderstorm came up. So again, do not be out on a lake. Do not be out on a golf course if a thunderstorm's coming up there. You don't want to get struck. And then the other factor, obviously, is the heat. We have the heat advisories today. We got the building heat in the middle of the country, as we just showed you there, with temperatures topping well into the 100s there, into like Kansas, for example. Again, if you're going to be outside, just make sure you stay hydrated and make sure you keep the sunscreen on. Best thing you do is just don't stay out in that heat. Just stay indoors and wait for things to kind of cool off. All right, that's going to do it for y'all's update here. Again, if you haven't subscribed to the channel just yet, please hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you learn on future content. And if you appreciate what you see here, please leave me a comment down below. Give me a thumbs up. I do appreciate y'all's help of our little channel. All right, that's y'all's update for now. You guys take it easy, be good, stay safe, and we'll see you next time. You guys take it easy. Bye-bye.